Hi, everybody. This is New Answers Podcast. Just tuning in, and our series on nurturing spirituality. I'm Gwendolyn Flynn, and my guest, and basically kind of a co-host, basically on this nurturing spirituality, is Tiffany Lee. Hi, Tiffany.
Hello.
So welcome to this podcast. And our topic this week, we started this conversation last time. I know you're probably tuning in at different times, but we were talking about demons and what I'm calling sort of this duality deal. And I don't think I'm using the word in the same way that um, spirituality uses it, or maybe even religion uses it, but it's about having the good and the evil, and demons being the evil. And so we want to continue that conversation because something Tiffany said, because we can talk for hours. We don't want to keep you on for hours and hours, although maybe that's something we should think about. Um, going into the dark side, I don't like staying in the dark side that much. But in talking about demons, that there are people out there who, I don't know, as part of their profession, perform exorcisms, right? Am I saying that right?
Yes.
I know, I mean, and I remember from the 80s that film called The Exorcist, and what that was about. But this is fascinating to me because bouncing off of that conversation about the demons or the dark side coming out when you're disconnected from the source, that having an exorcist is, it seems to me, it shouldn't be somebody who performs these practices that gets rid of the demons, but it should be someone who is helping you to reconnect with the higher power, so that, because we're all one, right? We're talking about we're all one, and
Right.
it's about us being connected to the source so that we are, in alignment with doing performing our purpose. And our purpose is to do God's work. Okay. So when you're having to have it. So anyway, I'm confused about why you need to have an exorcist.
Okay. So now we study science and mind, like you and I
Hmm.
know that this week actually kind of came up in my classes, like evil, like what is evil, and and how that relates to demons or whatnot. So there's so many theories, and that's all I could do is tell you because I don't know, I don't know if anyone knows exactly what it is, but everyone has their theories, right? But what does make sense is angels and demons are energy because we're all energy, right? So,
Yeah. Okay.
and obviously, angels are higher energy, and the demons are the shadow energy. So there's the light and the shadow. So the light and shadow is still part of being all one. Um, as far as why someone would need an exorcism, it's normally when, yes, they're not attached to a higher frequency and they're on the very, very low frequency. So then
Mm.
they're more susceptible to the influence of, I would call it the shadow world. And the reason why I don't call it dark anymore is because darkness is not bad. I remember having going through something really deep. Actually, it was my divorce and having encounters with Jesus, and um, we had to talk about the dark. And it was like everything grows in the dark. Like so, the dark is not bad. Everything grows in the dark. We grow during hard times. And so hard times is not this equivalent to being demon possessed or you know what I mean. Hard times is just like going through a divorce or going losing someone or you know what I mean. And it's opportunity for us to put aside our ego. Most people have a tendency to look for answers, look for the why, look whatever, and they have a tendency to go more towards looking for answers in higher realms as opposed to earthly answers. So that's why we grow in the dark, right? And then
Okay.
it's biological too. I mean, that's earthly too. I mean,
Yeah.
flowers and plants, they grow
That's
in
what I was
light.
thinking.
Yeah,
That's what I was thinking. Yes. You put seeds in the dark earth, right?
mhm,
For them to take root and grow. So,
right,
so yeah, so okay, I'm following that. That makes sense to me. Yeah.
right. So, um, and Ernest Holmes, what he says about evil is one, it doesn't come from God. Nothing evil can come from God because God is all
Right.
good. For
All
prime
good.
creator, God, source, whatever we call him, is all good and is all one. And it's one spirit, and we are all part of that one spirit. But
Yeah.
in this, but I guess that's where the free will always comes from is even though we're the spirit, we're in these human bodies, or we
Yeah.
at every level, spirit is in the creation of a being, So, and
Yeah.
I say that because, there's, I believe that there's aliens and, other people, other beings on other planets,
Okay.
and they probably have the same choice that we have because it's not like there's no God in the sky that says, here's the rules. It's a
Yeah.
creator. It's a
Yeah.
spirit creator, and it's always creating. It doesn't stop.
Yeah.
So we can't decide ourselves like, oh, we're the only planet is going to create living beings on. So there's that. But but in that sense that as the beings being created and we become like co-creators, we get to
Mhm.
co-create based on our other elements. So here on earth, it's our ego, right?
Okay.
And the further we're into our ego and further away from our heart and from spirit, then we have a tendency to go towards what some would call evil.
Okay.
Evil can be a perspective,
Hmm.
unfortunately, but I know what I consider evil here in the United States, but we could go to a country, someplace else and they do things a whole other way. And
Hmm.
that can be considered, we could consider it evil and they may not. So that is a different, that's why it's perspective, right? Now,
Yeah.
as far as demons,
In
some
our
do,
humanness.
yeah,
In our humanness, right?
humanness, yeah. So,
Hmm.
um, what my friend, he's a shaman and he does do exorcisms. And I asked him, I said, are demons real? He said, yes. And I was like, well, where do they come from? Like, how do
Hmm.
they get in you? And he said, so I was just looking at my phone real quick I don't want to say it wrong, but he said, it's an opening in your aura. And so what
That
does that mean, by the
opening
way?
in your aura that allows the demons to come in.
Yeah, because your aura is kind
Really?
of like your protective field, and it's also um kind of where you are spiritually in the moment. And
Okay.
yeah,
So it's not like so it's something from the outside. I'm thinking it was something internal. Like, like it comes from your ego. Like the ego has um taken dominance
right.
over yourself, right? And so in that ego-ness, that's a word.
Egoic.
You,
Yeah,
yeah, egoic. That's the word. Okay. You are disconnected from the source, right? Okay. But it sounds like to me you're saying that he said that it's a spirit or a being from without that comes into you because your aura is open for that.
right.
Am I misinterpreting? Oh,
No,
am
I think
I
that sounds
understanding?
right. So it's probably, he said an opening in your aura, and I should have asked more, like, how's that
Maybe
opening
we
happen?
should have him on. We should bring him into this conversation. Because
Right. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, I know. So what I'm taking from that is that if you're in really low vibration,
Uh-huh.
um, then you're open to it because it's a low vibration. Demons are low vibration. They're the
Oh.
shadow of the angels, which are very high vibration. So if your aura is down there with that low vibration, then yes, you have more influence in it. Um, he said, and some other people have said, it's also when you're in that, when you're in addictions, that's really a demonic um influence, um and stuff like
Mm,
yeah, spirits
mm,
and drugs and stuff like that. So it doesn't mean that if you drink or you do drugs once in a while that
mhm,
you are to attract spirits. It's all a matter of where you are in your vibration, where you are,
mm,
aura is, where you are with your mind and your heart and your alignment. So
mhm,
Jesus said when he was casting out demons, he said,
mhm.
even though he cast them out, if that person isn't filled with the Holy Spirit, then they can come back with friends. So you don't want to be
Oh,
empty. You know what I mean? So
right. Yeah.
you said a good point because you're like, why are they doing exorcisms? Why aren't they connecting them with God? But I think that's two different steps because just
Oh.
because you exorcise the demon out of them doesn't
Mm,
mean that they're making the choice to align. They can stay in that place. And when you stay in that place, then really they're still open for more.
mhm, mhm. And I also wrote down. I'm getting there. I'm following you, and I'm still struggling with. Okay, how does it? And but I'm getting there. But and in the thinking of, while we were sort of planning for this conversation, I wrote down the word resistance, and I'm wondering if I'm now understanding what you're saying and how your friend who does exorcism looks at this, is it that the ego or in your low frequency and these demons sort of come into your being, is that like a form of resistance to being connected to the higher power, a higher frequency, or I don't know. Maybe I'm off track here, but you can correct me if I'm
No,
wrong.
I don't know. I'm thinking about what you're saying and um seeing how that ties in possibly,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, yeah,
you're resisting
yeah,
growth, you're resisting higher frequencies, then you're definitely open
yeah.
for that. Um,
And the need for someone to help you raise your frequency would be the exorcist. I, I'm just, you know, I'm trying to
well, they can't raise your
reconcile
frequency.
this.
You have to do that yourself. No one can grow you. So all they can do is remove the shadow energy. All they can do is help you get out of that. But as far as like raising your own
Okay.
frequency, that's a completely individual thing. It's your choice to seek
Yeah,
and grow. Yeah. It's which
yeah.
is why I guess people can like continuously have the problem. Like alcoholism is hard to break, right? And that's why they associate a lot of times like AA with a spiritual center or
Mm-hmm.
church like that, like anything spiritual, because and this is not what they told me or anything, but I'm just
Yeah.
associating. So you'll notice they normally meet at some sort of church. Like we have one that meets at the spiritual center,
Mm-hmm.
because it's like asking for that higher power assistance to
Mm-hmm.
break that habit. Because if you're staying in that low vibration, then you're constantly open to the shadow energies.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's I guess that's what I rather call it. Instead of demons, I would call it shadow energies.
Oh, I like that. I like that term too, energies instead of demons or the dark side, energies. So the other thing that comes to mind, shadow energies, is for folks who are struggling with, say, alcoholism. Um, it may be alcoholism today. I mean, what I'm getting to is people struggling with addiction that they have an addictive energy, like, so it may be alcoholism today, it could be some other substance tomorrow, it could be shopping, it could be, smoking, it could be sex, because I've heard of people have, an addiction to those kinds of things. So it's about addictive behavior, which is a low frequency, right?
Right.
Kind of behavior. And that brings in these energies.
Right. It's actually probably caused by the shadow energies. Like we can all enjoy a glass of wine or
Oh,
shopping,
right. Cosmo. Yeah.
but but the addiction part is probably caused by the shadow energy.
Mm, mm,
It's a separation from God, and only God's love can really be fulfilling.
mm-hmm,
So it's addiction is like trying to find that fulfillment in something else. And that's what causes an addiction, because then you get like
mm.
temporary fulfillment and then it's gone. You need to do it again and again, as opposed to going through the constant connection to source, light, and love, which is what really our souls thrive on and grow on.
That makes sense to me. Yeah, and I can see why. I don't know how other sort of programs that deal with addiction, whether or not they connect themselves to some kind of spirituality or religion, but I can see how that should be a consideration if it isn't, or
Right.
why AA does that. I can see why that would help people overcome um, that kind of energy that they might have. Anyway, this is fascinating. So, I really would like to talk to this because I'd like to know what it takes, like what their process is, right, for
Oh, right.
conducting an exorcist for someone who has, is
A possession
yeah,
or an attachment. I know now you can
at,
have attachments. Like if you dive into spirituality and don't know how to protect yourself, then
hmm
um, you can get attachments. Everybody has energies around them.
hmm
So you can clear that yourself if you acknowledge it. If you just feel odd, feel like I'm having emotions that have nothing to do with anything. So I actually went through this morning. I was laying in bed. I went to bed last night feeling like uncomfortable. And I was like, oh man, I'm just tired. And I woke up still feeling like irritated. And I think that's a good sign for an attachment. I was just like irritated. Everything was irritating me. The sound of the heater coming on, even though it's cold, irritated me. But it was just like, and I'm not that type of person, right? So all everything was irritating me. So I was like, I think I have an attachment. So I did do kind of a ritual to clean my energy to get rid of any attachment around me.
hmm
That will influence your emotions.
So you think your friend would be interested in coming on and sharing just snippets of what it would take, and what process he undergoes in removing demons or the shadow energies from
Right.
some.
Probably would. He probably would. Um, and I know that he does his energy work from a distance. He doesn't have to be in at that person's place.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, that's why I was relating it to removing attachments. Like you can
Oh.
remove even your own attachments by, like, I call in Michael, Archangel Michael, who's the
Mm-hmm.
strongest archangel, to
Mm-hmm.
remove any attachments from me. And then I do a procedure to then protect my energy. And I have to remember to do that whenever I work with when I do psychic work, spiritual counseling with people, if I'm going to go into their energy, because
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what they're doing in their life or what kind of energies I'm going to come in contact with when I decide to go into their energy to do their readings and stuff. I notice that I have to um, first do a procedure to keep myself from bringing in their energy. Nothing, and I'll say like only light and for that person's highest and best, only light energy. And then at the end of it, if I remember, I should. remove the energies or the attachments that could have come in and clean my energy. So that's just mine, and their energy stays with them and my energy stays with me. There's a lady on YouTube and she says that every time before she goes into a channel.
Oh,
And even when she's talking to her people, she opens up so that everyone's energy can come in so she can channel. And then when she ends it, she says, my energy stays with me, your energy stays with you, and they clear the path. So
mm. And is
just
it
acknowledging that there's
okay?
energies of all frequencies around us all the time.
Mm-hmm. And just in stating it is acknowledging it, and that is enough, or do you have some other specific practices and rituals that need to follow that, or
No,
what?
that's pretty much just stating
Okay,
it and
okay.
acknowledging it. Now, I'm not
Hmm.
saying that's what a exorcism does, what the
Yeah,
difference
that's what
is, I don't know. And so I'm just as curious too. You know,
yeah.
the Catholic Church does a lot of exorcisms. They're like the pro at it, apparently, you know.
So like I said, I do recall the film from back in the 80s or whatever,
Yeah,
but I just thought that was probably shouldn't say this, but I just thought it was kind of a trend back then. Because you know how different generations go through these different periods of dealing with the shadow energies, because we talked before about,
yeah,
back in the day and the witchcraft and da, 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 so I thought it was another one of those sort of trends. But so you're saying that there's a standard practice that Catholics use for exorcism, like
yeah.
in general? Oh my God, I didn't know. Obviously not a Catholic, so I didn't know that. That's really interesting to me. So, but your friend is a shaman, so he's not connected to the Catholicism
Right.
necessarily.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be fascinating to have a conversation with to find out more about this. And yeah, I do, you had said earlier how the dark side, which is how I look at it, and I think I'm changing now because I'm liking this term, the shadow energies. um, isn't necessarily negative because it does indicate areas of growth that
Hmm.
we have to undergo, that we're still in our like development area. Like this is maybe an area that we are less developed in, and so we need
Right.
to experience it so that we can grow. So I can appreciate that, and I can accept that it's not like we need to stay away from the dark side, that we need to um, just understand like what it is. Like this is an opportunity. It's presenting itself because it's an opportunity for us to grow and develop.
Right.
Um, so I like that, and so I'm hoping that people who are listening to this are taking from it that those things that would benefit your particular situation at this point in time in your life. Um, what I do want to go to before we close this out is I think you had said something. I don't know if you did it while we were recording or if it was before or after, but the shadow energy that the world is experiencing seems to be cracking up a little bit, isn't it? Isn't it breaking so that we are beginning to see where the light is coming in? Uh,
Right.
I know in the area of politics, we're seeing some light opening up here.
Yeah. And I haven't been following it too much lately, but when I
Mhm.
do go on, I do see that they're not so tight. They're fighting amongst themselves at the moment. So that's
Wow.
pretty funny. Um,
Yeah. And it's
yeah,
about the transitioning of the world, right? Us growing and developing through this stuff. Yeah.
right. Exactly. Exactly. So I will go into real quick um one of my downloads about what's happening into the world right now.
It doesn't have to be real quick. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, because I'm just bringing up a part of it.
Mhm.
But we know, as some people know, or as a lot of channelers have heard, is that we are going into a new earth. So we're
Right.
like the 3D realm, and we're going into Earth is going into like a 5D realm with that. And so it's a higher frequency all over, like, period. So everyone has to adjust to that too. In this higher realm, higher frequency, a lot of the shadow elements of 3D will not exist, but it has to all come out to be cleansed, basically.
Mm.
So it kind of feels like if you think of um, polluted, oily water, how if you boil it and the oil comes to the surface, it's kind of that, like the shadow side of life right now is all coming up. And that's why so it's so ugly, right? It's so
It's so
low.
messy. It's
So
messy.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's what we want to call evil, really. Let's be real. Like evil
Mm-hmm.
happens. It's the dark side or the shadow side. We're not gonna say dark because
Yes.
dark is growth. Dark is good. Um, but a download I heard had maybe like 6 months ago was that Source was telling me, or my angels were telling me that we're at the end of this transition. Like New Earth is here. The light is here, New Earth is here. But it's kind of like when you're moving to a new home and you've packed the majority of stuff, but while you're cleaning out the cabinets and you're finding all kinds of stuff that you don't need, and the house looks really dirty before you move out and you have to clean it. That's kind of where we are. So everything's coming out the closet, basically. And the earth, I mean, life is ugly. The house is dirty. And then we're gonna be moving to our new house, and we're deciding what we're gonna take with us and what we're not, basically.
Kind of a
So
purge, right?
purge, exactly. That's a perfect
Yeah.
word. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. So it's kind of where we are. And you can tell that we're in that energy because people are changing so much. Like have you ever seen the world with so much humanitarian care and love coming through before?
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Yeah, right. Well, I'm seeing it. Yes. No, and I haven't seen so much of it at one time. Yes.
Right. Exactly. And what's important, you have to remember that everything's energy. So when I first started having these downloads about 2 years ago about New Earth and Old Earth, and that was when I first started really having downloads like that. Um, I remember hearing we're going to go through chaos. To get
Hmm.
to Earth, we got to go through chaos.
Hmm.
And I was told, don't pay attention to the chaos, pay attention to the light. And before, if at that time I was like, okay, fine. You know what I mean? And I
Hmm.
was told that frequently, pay attention to the light, add to the light, not the chaos. So when we focus on the chaos, we're giving it more energy, right? But when we focus
Right.
on the light, we want to give it more energy. So we want to remember to focus on the light to give that
Yes.
energy. And believe me, when all this started happening, I was focused on the chaos. I was like putting myself out there, and trying to change someone that's caught so deep in their shadow side,
Hmm.
it doesn't work. You can't join that shadow side to try to change them. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? Darkness doesn't overcome darkness, light does. Period. So you have to focus on the light, build more light. If you're going to have a conversation with someone that's, like neck deep in the shadow and not seen um what we call the evil of what's happening, and they don't
Hmm.
as evil, you're not going to have any influence on them by just talking to them or
Hmm.
even into that angry state. You know, it's literally, you got to, if you even approach it with some sort of love and light,
Hmm.
um, or completely ignore it, look at elsewhere because you can't change them like that. What we have to do is grow the light so that it overwhelms the
Hmm.
shadow. And I do think that's happening. It does feel like that's happening, which is why they're struggling. The shadow side, this we'll call it shadow beings, are struggling to keep control, because they, like, all the elements of the shadow, like greed and hate and separation and prejudice and fear, all that kind of stuff. With
Yeah.
so much light coming at it, it's it's kind of crushing them, and that's what we see them imploding.
Yes.
So it's good.
Yes. 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 And yes. Because and we started this nurturing spirituality sort of series as part of New Answers, knowing that would happen, right?
Right,
Knowing that there is that love and light will conquer any of the shadow energy and the dark side of it. And then to see it actually, and happen, like we're in the middle of it. And sometimes when you're in the middle of something, you can't really see it. You need a little bit of a perspective, but we
right,
can see it now. We can see these things happening. And I knew that there were more of us being those who are into the light, and into, the love and sharing that. There were more of us than there were of those who were, found themselves on the shadow, in the shadow energy. So this is really exciting to be a part of, to participate in this transformation, this new earth that's rising up. Um,
right.
I there was something that you said that I've lost now. I wanted to amplify, and I have lost that thread, but maybe it'll come up in another. I'm sure it'll probably come up in another conversation. But this has been exciting. I mean, I always feel energized after our conversations because I tend to be someone who is positive anyway, and try to see things through rose color. Well, at least the glass half full and not half empty.
Right,
You know,
right.
and it just becomes even more so after we have these conversations because I am so, um, I guess, energized by, well, the energy that we emit, and then knowing that it's going to help us amplify, this word, the
Right,
lightness that's out there, and make it much more of a dominant energy than what's there, than, what's going on. So. I invite those of you who are listening and have been following us to, give us your comments on what you're hearing in the comment section below. And as usual, if you haven't already started subscribing to us, hit that subscribe button so that you will be able to get the notification about any new postings that we have on YouTube. I'm going to tease the fact that in one of our upcoming episodes, we have invited one of our subscribers, one of our listeners, who has some comments about some conversations that we've had previously about spirituality. So she made her comments. We've invited her to join us in this conversation, so she'll be on one of the future episodes. So you'll wanna stay tuned for that, and hear what that conversation is about. So, on behalf of Tiffany Lee, I'm Gwendolyn Flynn, Gwen, and we will see you next time.